Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Michelle Anderson, for this fascinating talk and deeply inspiring.
Thank you.
Now let's open the floor. I want to ask everyone, if you have any question, don't hesitate to use the chat room below to write your questions right away. Otherwise, I open the floor. Whoever wants to ask a question to Dr. Anderson, please go ahead. Well, I know sometimes our audience is shy, so please really reflect on it, post your questions. And I want them to, because it's so precious to have you here, Michelle, some key insights of your talk are, I think, important also for us, for the lessons we have to learn now. We are in times of crisis. And we also want not just to look back, but to learn something. Many of us are deeply challenged due to the pandemic. It's a troubled time. So reflecting on your deep research of this encounter between East and the West, appreciating beauty, what you think are the key lessons we can learn for today, for each one of us here or those who watch the video after that? Maybe just to kick off this, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I think one of the key points is the way that Castiglione was able to listen. He didn't always take action or jump in, but he took time to listen and reflect on the interiority of the emperor's desires, the emperor's longings, and to build a real relationship instead of defending policies or defending doctrines. He was willing to listen and find meeting points of commonality. And I think that says a lot about what we need to be doing today.
Wonderful. So now I have a question from Father Fernando to you, who thanks you very much and wants to know about the last years of Brother Castiglione in Beijing. Would you know anything about the last years of Castiglione in Beijing?
Well, I do know that he died here in Beijing, and he was given a very honorable funeral procession in the streets of Beijing. And of course, he's buried here he was buried at the cemetery where the 60 missionaries' tombs are located. Even today, we can visit the burial place of Castiglione, although of course his remains are no longer there. But his memory is preserved there, and it's one of my favorite places to visit here in Beijing.
I may compliment just a detail of his contemporary, the Swiss brother, Franz Stadlin, as a clockmaker. He was incapacitated in his last years. He had a stroke. But again, he also was very much appreciated. The emperor gave him a large sum for his funeral. But it's also very, I think, an excellent question. Sometimes these last years can be particularly a struggle. So thank you, Father Fernando, for this question.
And I think those questions are deeply meaningful also because they bring out the human condition, the human nature of these missionaries. We seem to think that they trudged through and did great things, but they had a very difficult everyday life, and they met challenges, and they met the suffering of people around them as well, and their own suffering, and they worked through their own suffering, continuing in the work that they did to the end of their lives, to the end of their mission here in China. It's deeply admirable.
Feel also welcome, not just to post your question on the chat room. You can jump in, so to speak. You unmute yourself show your appreciation for this brilliant talk and ask a question, please. Feel free. So who has the courage to jump in?
Michelle?
Yes.
This is Mike Ma.
Oh, hello, Mike.
Hi,
Very good
how
to
are you?
hear your
Yes,
voice.
I enjoy your talk very much.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question about, I mean, we know that those judges, when they were in the palace, actually, the emperors or the palace really appreciate their talents in many different aspects. But I'd like to know whether they would have any success in delivering their religious message, or they create any religious impacts at all during their period.
Well, there definitely were converts to the faith. And I read recently that even down to the Empress Dowager Cixi, that she read the Bible. I was quite surprised to hear that. And of course, in the palace grounds, which I have to say, Mike, you know so well, and for the rest of the audience, I can say that Mike Ma has written one of the seminal works on the collections of the Palace Museum. It's really a magnificent volume, and I can highly recommend it. So, Mike, you're also familiar with that very beautiful chapel where the mother of the emperor went for her prayer just directly across from her private apartment or her private section of the palace grounds. And I would like to think that the Jesuits, the 7 Jesuits that were living inside the palace grounds in Beijing, also most likely used that for their own prayer services. I don't have any evidence of that, but given that it was set up as a chapel and it was designed so that pieces could be moved in and out and it could be restructured, reformatted. When I'm there, it's a place I like to visit also. I like to think that I'm walking in their footsteps.
You see. Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions? Most welcome.
Yes, I would like to ask, do we know anything about the process by which Castiglione acquired the way to paint in the Chinese way? Did he have teachers, or did we just learn by copying? I was wondering.
Well, I would like to think that he learned in the very Jesuit way, the Ignatian way of sharing. And so in the school of Castiglione, I believe that he was learning and teaching at the same time, acquiring knowledge, acquiring understanding. We know that one of the first things that he studied was this 5-point perspective. And perspective, of course, is so very important, not only in painting, but of course in understanding what is going on in the scene. So I do believe that his Ignatian practices contributed to his ability to see the larger picture and integrate himself into the scene through the eyes of the other individuals around him, the other artists that he was working with. I believe that it was a very collaborative process.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Hans, for your question.
You can see that his style developed dramatically from the time that he left Europe, left Genova, and then on to Coimbra. In Coimbra, he was painting images of the family, of the royal family, and he actually had to stay longer in Coimbra to complete the royal family portraitures before he could come along to China, which was very frustrating for him. That's all documented. So if you look at the image that he painted first in Genova of Tobias and Raphael, and then we look at the School of Castiglione to the right, And those images of the 12 beauties and also the magnificent landscape scenes and things that he created for the mother of the Qianlong emperor, we see that there's a very dramatic development and adaptation to his new surroundings, which is also a hallmark of his missionary success.
I of course would supplement it, because for me, Yuanmingyuan is my favorite park. I was there well over 100 times, because I was working close by. So I would very much like to ask you. So in Chinese, Yuanmingyuan means the park of brilliant splendor. Now you come also from a very profound understanding of Ignatian spirituality, and we have coined the talk of spiritual friendship. Now, what would you suggest? What makes a life, as a lesson for us, perfect and brilliant? See,
complete trust. Complete trust. And that is exactly what Castiglione had when he came to China. And I think that was the idea behind that first painting of the Tobias putting his trust in God and following the angel, walking with an angel, which probably got Castiglione through some very difficult situations and very difficult times. And always looking for the good, looking for God, and even in the darkest situations, that cornerstone of Ignatian spirituality, I think, was very central to Castiglione's work and his life here in China.
Is a brilliant answer. It could be a wonderful kind of final insight, but still I want to insist, feel welcome is a unique chance we have all to interact with Michel, and as brilliant is this appeal to complete trust. I very much like that, but still feel free either to post your question on the chat room or jump in with your question.
I would also like to invite questions, particularly around this idea of the Ruyi scepter, which I have also sitting a sculpted Ruyi on my desk. I think it's a really interesting image. So the Ruyi became a gift that the Qianlong emperor gave quite widely to guests. But the Ruyi with the blossoming Lixing fungi mushroom at the top was very special, because this really was the symbol of an auspicious time, an auspicious season. And I shared those images of Saint Joseph with his blossoming staff, and of course Maria with the blossoming lilies. And so I wonder what you think of that idea of the inspiration of the Ruyi scepter in these images of the most beautiful women of the imperial palace, particularly this one, this chosen woman. The oracle phrase for Ruyi is actually a kneeling woman listening to lips. She's listening to either words or music of inspiration. And the second oracle character in Ruyi is a preacher, actually, or a speaker or a teacher. It's the figure, a male figure, clearly a very male figure with genitalia to denote that it's a male. And he has his hands up in praise. It's very clear. And I think it's such a beautiful mingling of the woman listening to the word and the preacher, teacher at her side, working together for the will of God, for the Ruyi, your will be done. And that comes long before Christianity. It's as if the oracle was waiting for the word.
Last chance, anybody might to seize this opportunity to ask a question. Otherwise, really thank you, Michel, very, very much indeed. So many insights have gone into your talk. Michel, I don't know if you want to share a last insight.
Well, My final insight is just warm gratitude to you, Stefan, and for the very good work that you're doing in promoting art and culture as part of the faith tradition, and the very good work of the Matteo Ricci Institute. It's really been an honor to be included in your ongoing work, and I'm very grateful. Thank you for letting me share these ideas with you and with this distinguished public tonight. Thank you very much.
Yes, so thanks again very much indeed, Michelle, and also thanks for this very positive, encouraging feedback we got from this distinguished audience. One also who especially greets you was quoted many times, who could not be here because of his teaching obligation, Professor Francesco Vostilla. Wants to convey his greetings to you, Michelle, and everybody here. He has certainly done extensive research on this topic. So thanks, anybody, and all the very best. Goodbye.